Standing in my cap and gown, I never expected to hear my name called as valedictorian. For 4 years, I had worked 3 jobs to pay my own tuition while my parents funded my sister's entire education at an elite private university. They claimed I was not college material, that investing in me would be wasteful. But as the dean announced my perfect GPA and full scholarship to medical school, I watched my parents' faces drain of color from the audience. My sister Emma sat frozen beside them, her mediocre grades suddenly exposed to our entire extended family, who had gathered for what they thought would be Emma's moment of glory. Hey, everyone! Before we dive into this incredible story of family betrayal and ultimate justice, I want to know where you're watching from. Drop your location in the comments below. And if you love stories where karma comes back around, full circle, smash that like button and hit subscribe, because this family revenge drama will leave you speechless. Trust me, you won't want to miss what happens when the golden child's lies finally catch up to her. Growing up, Emma had always been the favored daughter. She was 2 years older, blonde, and effortlessly charming in a way that made adults gravitate toward her. I was the quiet, studious brunette who spent more time with books than people. Our parents, Margaret and David Whitmore, made no secret of their preference. When college applications rolled around, the inequality became glaringly obvious. Emma received a brand new car for her 18th birthday, complete with insurance payments covered by our parents. She applied to expensive private universities, confident that money would never be an issue. Meanwhile, I was told that the family budget could only stretch to cover one child's education, and that child would naturally be Emma, since she had better social skills and would likely marry well. The conversation that changed everything happened on a rainy Tuesday evening in March. I had just received my acceptance letter to State University with a partial scholarship, and I was desperately trying to figure out how to cover the remaining $15,000 per year. I approached my parents in the living room, where they were reviewing Emma's acceptance to prestigious private university, which costs $60,000 annually. Mom, Dad, I know you said the budget is tight, but could we maybe take out a small loan for my remaining tuition? I promise I'll pay it back after graduation, I said, clutching my acceptance letter. My father barely looked up from his newspaper. Seraphina, we've already explained this. Emma's education is an investment in our family's future. She'll network with influential people and likely marry someone who can provide for her. You're too serious, too bookish. College will just fill your head with unrealistic expectations. My mother nodded in agreement. Besides, you can get a nice job at the local bank or maybe become a secretary. You don't need a degree for that. Emma, lounging on the couch while scrolling through her phone, finally chimed in with a smirk. Sarah's always been the dramatic one. She'll figure something out. Besides, not everyone is cut out for real college life. That night, I made a decision that would define the next 4 years of my life. I would prove them wrong no matter what it took. I accepted the state university offer, took out maximum student loans, and found 3 part-time jobs tutoring math on weekends, working at a coffee shop every morning before classes, and cleaning offices 3 nights a week. The financial strain was crushing, but the emotional manipulation was worse. Every family gathering became an opportunity for my parents to showcase Emma's achievements while dismissing mine. When I made the dean's list, my first semester, my mother's response was, "That's nice, dear. Emma just got invited to join the most exclusive sorority on campus." During my sophomore year, I discovered something that made my blood run cold. While visiting home for Christmas, I accidentally found financial documents in my father's home office while looking for batteries. Hidden beneath insurance papers was a college savings account statement that showed $250,000 specifically designated for Seraphina's education fund. The account had been established when I was 5 years old, funded by my late grandfather's inheritance. My hands trembled as I read through the paperwork. Not only had my parents lied about their inability to pay for my education, but they had actively stolen money that my grandfather had intended for me. The documents showed regular transfers from my education fund into Emma's account over the past 2 years, totaling nearly $100,000. I photographed every document with my phone, my heart pounding as I heard footsteps approaching the office. I quickly replaced everything and slipped out, but the damage was done. The betrayal cut deeper than any financial hardship I had endured. They had not just refused to help me. They had stolen from me to fund my sister's lavish lifestyle. The next few months were a blur of rage and determination. I threw myself into my studies with renewed fury, maintaining a perfect GPA while working myself to exhaustion. Every time I wanted to confront my parents, I reminded myself that the best revenge would be success they could never diminish or claim credit for. Emma, meanwhile, was struggling academically at her expensive university. Her social media posts showed constant parties and spring break trips, but I heard through family conversations that her grades were barely passing. My parents dismissed this as normal adjustment issues, insisting that her networking and social connections were more valuable than grades anyway. The contrast became even starker during family dinners. While Emma regaled everyone with stories of fraternity parties and expensive shopping trips funded by my stolen inheritance, I quietly excelled in advanced chemistry and biology courses while surviving on ramen noodles and generic coffee. By my junior year, I had established myself as one of the top students in the pre-med program. My professors began recommending me for research opportunities and leadership positions, but I kept these achievements private from my family. I was building towards something bigger than daily validation. The first crack in my parents' facade came during Easter dinner at our aunt's house. Extended family members who hadn't seen me in months were shocked by my transformation. I had lost weight from stress and overwork, but my confidence had grown exponentially. When my cousin Mark, a doctor himself, asked about my studies, I couldn't hide my passion for biochemistry and medical research. Seraphina, your understanding of cellular biology is remarkable for an undergraduate. Have you considered medical school? Mark asked, genuinely impressed by our conversation. Before I could respond, my father interrupted with his usual dismissive tone. Sarah's always been a dreamer. We're focusing our educational investments on Emma, who's at prestigious private university studying business and communications. Mark raised an eyebrow. Business and communications. That's interesting, but Seraphina seems to have real talent for medicine. Have you looked into her academic records lately? My mother quickly changed the subject, but I caught Mark's curious expression. After dinner, he pulled me aside privately. Seraphina, I don't know what's happening in your family, but you have genuine talent. If you ever need someone to write a recommendation letter or discuss medical school applications, please call me. That conversation planted a seed that would eventually grow into something powerful. I realized I needed allies outside my immediate family, people who could see my worth without the distorted lens of favoritism and manipulation. The real turning point came during spring break of my junior year. While Emma was in Cancun with her sorority sisters, spending thousands of dollars that rightfully belonged to me, I was working extra shifts to cover rent and textbooks. On a particularly exhausting Thursday evening, I received an unexpected phone call from the university's financial aid office. Miss Whitmore, we're calling because we've received some unusual documentation regarding your family's financial status. According to your FAFSA, your family income qualifies you for minimal aid, but we've received information suggesting there may be undisclosed assets. Could you come in tomorrow to discuss this?" My heart stopped. Someone had exposed the discrepancy between my reported family poverty and their actual wealth. The next morning, I sat across from Mrs. Rodriguez, the financial aid counselor, feeling like I was walking into a courtroom. "Seraphina, we've received an anonymous tip that your parents have significant assets that weren't reported on your financial aid applications. Specifically, there's mention of an education fund that was established in your name. Do you know anything about this?" I took a deep breath and made a decision that would change everything. "Mrs. Rodriguez, I discovered that fund by accident last Christmas. My parents told me they couldn't afford to help with my education, but they've been transferring money from an account my grandfather established for me into my sister's college fund instead." Her expression grew serious. "Do you have any documentation of this?" I pulled out my phone and showed her the photographs I had taken months earlier. Mrs. Rodriguez examined them carefully, her frown deepening with each image. "Seraphina, this is financial aid fraud. Your parents have been lying about their assets to secure aid for you while simultaneously using your money to pay for your sister's education. This is both morally and legally problematic." The room seemed to spin around me. I had known my parents' behavior was wrong, but hearing it labeled as fraud made the betrayal feel even more devastating. "What happens now?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "We need to report this to the appropriate authorities. The university takes financial aid fraud very seriously. Additionally, you may have grounds for legal action regarding the misappropriation of your inheritance." Within a week, investigators from both the university and the state financial aid office were examining my family's records. The discovery process revealed even more shocking details about the extent of my parents' deception. Not only had they stolen from my education fund, but they had also claimed me as a dependent on their taxes while providing zero financial support, giving them additional tax benefits. They had lied to extended family members about paying for my education, accepting praise for their generosity, while knowing I was struggling to survive on minimum wage jobs. The investigation also revealed that Emma's academic performance was even worse than I had suspected. Her GPA was barely above failing, and she had been placed on academic probation twice. My parents had made additional under-the-table payments to tutors and had even paid someone to write several of her papers. When the investigators contacted Emma's university about potential academic fraud, they discovered a pattern of purchased assignments and proxy test-taking that went back to her freshman year. The golden child's entire academic career was built on lies and bought achievements. The moment of truth arrived on a Thursday afternoon when my parents received simultaneous calls from both universities' investigation departments. I was not present for those conversations, but I heard about the aftermath through my aunt, who received frantic calls from my mother claiming there had been some terrible misunderstanding. That evening, my parents showed up at my apartment unannounced for the first time in 2 years. My father's face was red with rage, while my mother looked like she had been crying for hours. "How could you betray your own family like this?" My father screamed the moment I opened the door. "Do you have any idea what you've done? Emma might be expelled. Our reputation is ruined." For the first time in my life, I felt completely calm in the face of their anger. "I didn't betray anyone, Dad. I simply told the truth about what you did to me." My mother stepped forward, her voice pleading. "Seraphina, we can fix this. We'll pay back the money we borrowed from your fund. We'll help with your remaining tuition. Just please tell them this was all a misunderstanding." The word borrowed made me laugh bitterly. "You didn't borrow anything, Mom. You stole from me for 3 years while watching me work myself into exhaustion. And now you want me to lie to protect Emma from the consequences of her cheating. The weeks following my parents' desperate visit became a whirlwind of legal consultations, university meetings, and difficult conversations. I quickly realized that fighting my family's deception would require more than just moral outrage. I needed strategic allies and concrete evidence that even the most expensive lawyers couldn't dismiss. My first ally came from an unexpected source, Dr. Jennifer Lake. My organic chemistry professor had noticed my exceptional performance despite my obvious exhaustion and financial stress. When news of the investigation spread through the academic grapevine, she approached me after class with a proposal that would change everything. Seraphina, I've been following your situation, and I want you to know that several faculty members are prepared to support you. But more than that, I think you should know about a conversation I had with your cousin Mark. Dr. Lake explained that Mark had contacted her after our Easter conversation, concerned about my family situation and impressed by my academic potential. Together, they had begun documenting my achievements and building a case for my medical school applications. But when Mark learned about the fraud investigation, he had shared information that made my situation even more complicated. Your grandfather's will specifically stated that the education fund was to be used exclusively for your medical education. Your parents violated the legal terms of the inheritance, which means this isn't just financial aid fraud. It's also a breach of fiduciary duty and theft of designated funds. This revelation meant I could pursue legal action beyond the university's investigation. Mark had connected me with Amanda Sterling, a lawyer who specialized in inheritance disputes and educational fraud. Amanda's initial assessment was devastating to my parents' position and encouraging for mine. Seraphina, your case is stronger than most inheritance disputes I see. You have photographic evidence, clear documentation of the fund's intended purpose, and a pattern of deceptive behavior that spans several years. Your parents can't claim this was an innocent misunderstanding. Amanda's strategy was methodical and brilliant. Instead of immediately pursuing maximum legal action, she suggested we build an overwhelming case by documenting every aspect of my parents' deception. This meant gathering testimony from family members, professors, employers, and anyone who had witnessed the favoritism and lies over the years. The process of collecting evidence revealed just how extensive my parents' manipulation had been. My Aunt Rebecca, who had always seemed neutral during family gatherings, came forward with shocking information. She revealed that my parents had borrowed money from several relatives, specifically to fund Emma's education, claiming that I had refused their help and chosen to be financially independent. I gave your father $15,000 2 years ago because he said you were too proud to accept family help, Rebecca told me during a tearful phone call. He said you wanted to prove yourself independently. I admired your determination, but now I realize they were lying about everything. Even more damaging was testimony from Mrs. Patterson, our longtime family accountant. When contacted by Amanda's office, she revealed that my parents had specifically asked her to hide the education fund from financial aid applications. She had warned them this was illegal, but they had insisted it was a temporary measure until Emma graduated. I told them multiple times that what they were doing was fraud. Mrs. Patterson explained in her deposition. They assured me that Seraphina would never find out, and that they would pay back the fund after Emma established her career. As our evidence mounted, Emma's situation at prestigious private university continued to deteriorate. The academic integrity investigation had expanded beyond purchased papers to include proxy test-taking and fabricated lab reports. Her sorority had quietly distanced themselves from her, and several professors had come forward with suspicions about her work that they had previously kept to themselves. The contrast between our trajectories became even more stark when I received notification that I had been selected for the university's highest academic honor, the Chancellor's Award for Outstanding Achievement. The award came with a cash prize of $10,000 and automatic consideration for medical school scholarships. When I called my cousin Mark to share the news, his response was both supportive and strategic. "Seraphina, this is perfect timing. I've been in contact with the admissions committee at my alma mater's medical school. They're very interested in your story, particularly the way you've excelled despite financial hardship. But they're also concerned about the ongoing legal situation with your family." Mark's medical school connection introduced another powerful ally, Dr. William Chen, the admissions committee chair who had personally overcome similar family obstacles during his own education. Dr. Chen's involvement brought institutional credibility to my case and provided a compelling narrative for medical school applications. What impresses me about your situation, Seraphina, is not just your academic achievement, but your integrity in the face of family pressure. Medicine requires both intellectual capability and moral courage. You've demonstrated both qualities remarkably. Meanwhile, my parents' attempts to control the narrative were becoming increasingly desperate and transparent. They had hired an expensive lawyer who was pressuring me to settle quietly and avoid public exposure. Their strategy involved painting me as an ungrateful daughter who was destroying the family over a simple misunderstanding about money management. Their lawyer, Robert Blackwood, contacted Amanda with an offer that revealed just how worried they had become. They would pay back the full amount stolen from my education fund, plus interest, and cover my remaining tuition costs if I agreed to withdraw the fraud complaints and sign a non-disclosure agreement. Amanda and I discussed the offer carefully, but the terms were ultimately unacceptable. The proposed settlement would have required me to lie about what happened and prevented me from discussing my experiences with medical school admissions committees or potential employers. Most importantly, it would have done nothing to address Emma's academic fraud or prevent my parents from victimizing others in the future. "They want to buy your silence, not make amends for what they did," Amanda explained. "Accepting this offer would mean allowing them to continue their pattern of deception without consequences." The rejection of their settlement offer prompted my parents to escalate their pressure campaign. They began contacting extended family members, spreading their version of events and portraying me as vindictive and money-obsessed. Some relatives who had initially supported me began expressing doubt, wondering if pursuing legal action was worth destroying family relationships. These doubts reached a crescendo during a family gathering at my grandmother's house in October. My parents had convinced most attendees that I was being influenced by greedy lawyers and making a mountain out of a molehill. The intervention they staged was emotionally brutal, but ultimately backfired spectacularly. "Seraphina," my grandmother began, her voice trembling with emotion, "your parents made mistakes, but they love you. Is money really worth destroying this family?" Before I could respond, my Uncle James, who had been quietly supportive throughout the investigation, spoke up with information that stunned everyone present. "Mom, they didn't just take Sarah's money. They've been borrowing from you too, claiming it was for her education. How much have you given them over the past 3 years?" The number my grandmother whispered, $45,000, created a moment of absolute silence in the room. My parents had not only stolen my inheritance, but had also defrauded my elderly grandmother using my name as justification. That revelation shifted the family dynamic permanently. Relatives who had been pressuring me to forgive and forget suddenly realized the scope of my parents' deception. My grandmother in particular was devastated to learn that money she thought was supporting my education had actually been funding Emma's spring break trips and sorority fees. Just as our case seemed unstoppable, the unthinkable happened. Dr. Jennifer Lake, my trusted chemistry professor who had been instrumental in building my academic credibility, received an offer that would test the strength of our alliance in ways I never anticipated. It started with a seemingly innocent conversation in November. Dr. Lake had been contacted by the board of directors at prestigious private university where Emma was facing expulsion. They offered her the department chair position she had been pursuing for years, complete with a substantial salary increase and research funding that would secure her career for decades. The catch became clear during our regular mentoring meeting on a cold Tuesday afternoon. Dr. Lake seemed unusually nervous as she explained the situation, her hands fidgeting with papers on her desk in a way I had never seen before. Seraphina, I need to discuss something difficult with you. I've been offered an incredible opportunity, but it comes with complications related to your case. My stomach dropped as she continued. The position at Emma's university came with an unofficial understanding that Dr. Lake would distance herself from my situation and potentially provide character testimony for Emma if needed. The board had made it clear that my fraud allegations were creating negative publicity they wanted to minimize. They're not asking me to lie or say Emma didn't cheat, Dr. Lake explained, her voice strained. But they want me to emphasize her potential for growth and rehabilitation. They believe she deserves a second chance, and they think my support could be the difference between expulsion and academic probation. The betrayal felt like a physical blow. Dr. Lake had been more than an academic mentor. She had become a trusted advisor who understood the emotional toll of fighting my family's deception. Her potential defection to Emma's side would not only weaken my case, but would also provide Emma with credible academic support she desperately needed. "What are you going to do?" I asked, trying to keep the devastation out of my voice. Dr. Lake's response revealed the extent of the pressure she was facing. The position would solve all my financial problems and establish my research program permanently. But accepting it would mean compromising everything I've said about academic integrity and supporting students like you who actually deserve recognition. Over the next week, I watched Dr. Lake struggle with her decision while dealing with my own sense of abandonment. She began missing our regular meetings and seemed uncomfortable when we encountered each other in the hallway. Other students noticed the change in her demeanor, and rumors began circulating about her potential departure from our university. The situation became even more complicated when Emma's lawyer, Robert Blackwood, contacted me directly with new settlement terms that clearly reflected inside knowledge about Dr. Lake's potential defection. They knew that losing her support would significantly weaken my position, and their offer was designed to capitalize on that vulnerability. "Miss Whitmore," Blackwood said during an unwelcome phone call, "I understand your academic mentor is reconsidering her involvement in this matter. Perhaps this would be a good time to discuss a resolution that benefits everyone involved." The new settlement offer was larger, but came with even more restrictive terms. In addition to the non-disclosure agreement, I would be required to write a letter of support for Emma's appeal and publicly state that the academic fraud allegations were exaggerated. Most insultingly, they wanted me to claim that my accusations had been motivated by jealousy rather than legitimate grievances. When I shared this development with Amanda, my lawyer's response was both strategic and supportive. "They're trying to isolate you by removing your academic credibility. Dr. Lake's decision will certainly impact our case, but it won't destroy it. However, we need to accelerate our timeline and prepare for the possibility that she'll testify against us. The pressure intensified when Dr. Lake finally made her decision. During what would be our last mentoring meeting, she delivered the news I had been dreading while struggling to maintain eye contact. Seraphina, I've decided to accept the position at prestigious private university. I want you to know this decision has nothing to do with my belief in your integrity or the validity of your case. But I have to think about my own future and the future of my research program. The rational part of my mind understood her choice, but the emotional impact was devastating. Losing Dr. Lake felt like losing a parent figure who actually believed in my potential. Worse, I knew that Emma and my parents would interpret her defection as validation of their narrative that I was the real problem in this situation. Dr. Lake's departure had immediate practical consequences. She had been scheduled to write recommendation letters for my medical school applications, and her withdrawal left gaps in my academic support system that would be difficult to fill. Additionally, her inside knowledge of our strategy could potentially be used against me if Emma's legal team decided to involve her in their defense. The betrayal became public knowledge when the university newspaper published an article about Dr. Lake's new position. The piece mentioned her previous support for students facing financial hardship, creating an obvious connection to my situation without naming me directly. Comments from students revealed how her departure was being interpreted across campus. It's obvious she figured out that student was lying about her family situation. One anonymous comment read, "Why else would she leave right in the middle of supporting her? Emma's social media posts during this period showed a smugness that was particularly galling. She began posting inspirational quotes about second chances and overcoming obstacles, clearly confident that Dr. Lake's defection had shifted momentum in her favor. Her friends' supportive comments revealed that they had been fed a narrative portraying her as the victim of a vindictive sister's false accusations. The lowest point came when I received an unexpected visit from my parents, who arrived at my apartment with Dr. Lake's resignation letter and a triumphant attitude I hadn't seen since the investigation began. "Even your professor realizes you've gone too far," my mother said, waving the letter like evidence of vindication. "Dr. Lake understands that Emma made mistakes, but she doesn't deserve to have her entire future destroyed over them." My father's tone was particularly cruel. "Maybe now you'll realize that this vendetta is hurting everyone, including people who tried to help you. How many more relationships are you willing to sacrifice for revenge?" Their visit was clearly designed to break my resolve by emphasizing my isolation, but it had the opposite effect. Seeing their satisfaction at Dr. Lake's departure reminded me exactly why I had started this fight. They had spent my entire life manipulating situations to benefit Emma at my expense, and Dr. Lake's betrayal was simply another example of how their influence corrupted people around them. That night, I called my cousin Mark to discuss the implications of losing Dr. Lake's support. His response provided both perspective and renewed determination. "Seraphina, I understand how devastating this feels, but remember that your case doesn't depend on any single person's support. The financial evidence is indisputable, and Emma's academic fraud speaks for itself. Dr. Lake's decision reflects the pressure she's facing, not the strength of your position." Mark's confidence was reassuring, but I knew that the fight ahead would be more difficult without Dr. Lake's academic credibility. Emma now had a respected chemistry professor potentially willing to testify to her character. while I had lost my most prominent faculty supporter. The playing field had shifted dramatically in my family's favor, and I would need to find new strategies to regain the advantage. Just when Emma's camp seemed to have gained decisive momentum through Dr. Lake's defection, an unexpected development completely reversed the trajectory of our case. The breakthrough came from the most unlikely source, Emma herself, whose arrogance and sense of invincibility led her to make a catastrophic mistake. In December, as both universities were finalizing their investigations, Emma decided to celebrate what she believed was her inevitable victory by posting a detailed social media thread about her experience. The posts, which she clearly intended as inspiration for other students facing academic challenges, inadvertently provided a comprehensive confession to every allegation we had made against her. "Sometimes life tests you in ways you never expected," Emma wrote in the first post of her thread. "This year I've learned that success isn't just about grades, but about building relationships and finding creative solutions to academic challenges." The thread continued with increasingly specific details about her academic strategies. She described how she had collaborated with tutors who helped her understand complex concepts by providing detailed outlines that closely resembled completed assignments. She mentioned study groups, where more advanced students shared their expertise through comprehensive explanations that happened to match her submitted work word for word. Most damaging was her discussion of test-taking strategies. "I've learned that test anxiety can be managed through various support systems," she wrote. "Sometimes having a study partner who really understands the material sit nearby during exams can provide the confidence boost you need to perform at your best." Amanda, my lawyer, was ecstatic when I forwarded the social media posts. "Seraphina, she's essentially confessed to every form of academic dishonesty we've alleged. Proxy test-taking, purchased assignments, collaborative cheating. It's all here in her own words." But Emma's social media confession was only the beginning of our evidence windfall. Her posts had attracted attention from current and former students at prestigious private university, several of whom began sharing their own experiences with Emma's academic methods in the comments section. One particularly detailed comment came from a student named Marcus Webb, who had been in several classes with Emma over the past 3 years. Marcus's comment provided specific dates assignments and professors involved in Emma's cheating schemes, creating a timeline that correlated perfectly with our existing evidence. "I was wondering when someone would finally call out her methods," Marcus wrote. "I watched her pay my roommate $500 to take her organic chemistry final last spring. She didn't even try to hide it. She bragged about how easy it was to find people willing to help for the right price." The comment thread became a treasure trove of evidence as more students shared similar experiences. By the end of the week, we had documented testimony from 12 different students who had either witnessed Emma's cheating or had been approached to participate in her schemes. Amanda immediately began contacting these students to provide formal statements, and their willingness to testify revealed the extent of Emma's reputation on campus. Far from being the beloved social butterfly my parents described, Emma was widely known as someone who treated academic integrity as optional and other students as resources to be exploited. While we were building an overwhelming case against Emma's academic fraud, an even more powerful ally emerged from an unexpected direction. Dr. H. Sarah Chen, the Dean of Admissions at State University Medical School, had been following my case through her professional networks and was impressed by both my academic achievements and my integrity in handling the family crisis. Dr. Chen's interest went beyond simple admiration for my perseverance. As an Asian American woman who had faced her own family pressures regarding career choices, she understood the cultural and emotional complexities of challenging family expectations. More importantly, her position gave her access to resources and connections that could fundamentally change the trajectory of my future. Seraphina, Dr. Chen said during our first phone conversation, I've been reviewing your academic record and following the developments in your family situation. I believe you represent exactly the kind of student our medical program is designed to support. Someone with exceptional ability who has overcome significant obstacles through determination and integrity, Dr. Chen's support came with concrete benefits that immediately strengthened my position. She provided a formal letter of recommendation for my medical school applications that carried significant weight in admissions circles. More importantly, she connected me with a network of medical professionals who could provide mentorship and career guidance regardless of how the legal situation resolved. Your case has become something of a discussion topic in medical education circles, Dr. Chen explained. Faculty members at several institutions are interested in supporting students who demonstrate your level of resilience and ethical commitment. The network Dr. Chen introduced me to included physicians, researchers, and medical school administrators who had all overcome various forms of educational adversity. Their collective support provided not just emotional encouragement, but also practical resources like additional letters of recommendation, interview preparation, and even financial assistance for application fees. Dr. Chen's involvement also brought media attention that my parents had not anticipated. Medical education publications began covering my story as an example of how family dysfunction could either derail or motivate student achievement. The coverage was generally sympathetic to my situation and critical of the systemic issues that allowed educational fraud to persist. This media attention had unexpected consequences for Dr. Lake's position at prestigious private university. Medical education professionals who knew her previous work began questioning her decision to support an institution that was harboring academic fraud. Several colleagues contacted her directly to express disappointment with her choice, creating professional pressure she hadn't anticipated. The pressure intensified when Dr. Chen published an editorial in a prominent medical education journal titled Integrity in Medical Education, supporting students who choose truth over family comfort. While the piece didn't mention names, the details clearly referenced my situation and implicitly criticized Dr. Lake's decision to prioritize career advancement over educational principles. Medical education must support students who demonstrate moral courage, even when that courage creates personal hardship, Dr. Chen wrote. Faculty members who abandon ethical students in favor of institutional politics send a dangerous message about the values we expect from future physicians. The editorial sparked a broader conversation about academic integrity and faculty responsibility that put both Dr. Lake and prestigious private university in an increasingly uncomfortable position. Medical education professionals began asking pointed questions about how the university was handling Emma's case and whether their response met appropriate ethical standards. Meanwhile, the evidence against Emma continued to mount through sources we hadn't expected. Mrs. Patterson, the family accountant, provided additional financial records showing that my parents had made specific payments to academic service companies that specialized in providing completed assignments and proxy test takers. The paper trail was so detailed that it included receipts for individual assignments and exams. Your parents kept meticulous records of every payment they made for Emma's academic assistance, Mrs. Patterson explained during her expanded testimony. They treated it like any other educational expense, Tutoring textbooks and assignment completion services were all budgeted together. The financial evidence revealed the staggering scope of my parents' investment in Emma's fraudulent education. Over 3 years, they had spent more than $47,000 on various forms of academic assistance, not including the money stolen from my education fund. The systematic nature of these payments demonstrated that Emma's cheating wasn't impulsive or occasional. It was a carefully planned strategy that had been funded and supported by our parents from the beginning. Dr. Chen's investigation into my academic background also uncovered additional evidence of the discrimination I had faced. She contacted professors from my early undergraduate courses and discovered a pattern of exceptional performance that my family had consistently dismissed or ignored. Several professors remembered me specifically because my work quality seemed inconsistent with the lack of family support I had mentioned in conversations. I always wondered why such a brilliant student seemed to be struggling financially. Professor Williams from my freshman biology course told Dr. Chen. She produced graduate-level analysis in her papers, but she mentioned multiple times that she was working 3 jobs because her family couldn't help with expenses. It seemed inconsistent with her obvious intellectual capability. As all these pieces fell into place, the strength of our position became overwhelming. We had Emma's own confession through social media testimony from multiple witnesses to her academic fraud, detailed financial records of payments for cheating services, and a growing network of medical education professionals supporting my integrity and academic achievement. The culmination of our efforts arrived sooner than anyone expected, triggered by Emma's final act of arrogance that sealed her fate definitively. In January, just weeks before her scheduled graduation, Emma made the catastrophic decision to threaten Marcus Webb, the student whose social media comment had opened the floodgates of testimony against her. Emma apparently believed that intimidating Marcus would convince other witnesses to recant their statements. Instead, her threatening messages, which Marcus immediately shared with university officials and posted publicly, provided the final piece of evidence that destroyed any remaining sympathy for her position. "You better shut your mouth about things you don't understand," Emma had written in a series of increasingly aggressive messages. "My family has resources you can't imagine, and we remember people who try to hurt us. Your future career could disappear very quickly if you keep running your mouth." The threats backfired spectacularly. Rather than silencing critics, they prompted additional students to come forward with their own experiences of Emma's intimidation tactics. The pattern that emerged showed a young woman who had spent years using her family's wealth and influence to manipulate academic situations and silence anyone who questioned her methods. University officials at both institutions accelerated their investigations in response to Emma's threatening behavior. Within 2 weeks, prestigious private university announced Emma's immediate expulsion for multiple violations of academic integrity policies. The decision was final and non-appealable, effectively ending her college career just months before graduation. The financial consequences for my parents were swift and comprehensive. State University required full repayment of fraudulent financial aid, including penalties and interest that totaled more than $37,000. Additionally, they faced federal investigation for financial aid fraud, which carried potential criminal charges beyond the civil penalties. Dr. Lake's position at prestigious private university became untenable as the full scope of Emma's fraud became public knowledge. Medical education professionals who had initially questioned her decision now openly criticized her judgment in supporting an institution that had harbored such extensive academic dishonesty. Within a month of Emma's expulsion, Dr. Lake quietly resigned from her new position and took a significantly less prestigious role at a small community college. The legal resolution came through Amanda's masterful negotiation strategy. Rather than pursuing maximum criminal penalties, we focused on complete financial restitution and public acknowledgement of the fraud. My parents were required to repay every dollar stolen from my education fund with interest, plus an additional $50,000 in compensatory damages for the emotional distress and lost opportunities their deception had caused. More importantly, they were required to provide written apologies that would be shared with every family member they had lied to about funding my education. The apologies had to acknowledge specific lies they had told and explain how they had used my name to defraud relatives like my grandmother. The medical school application process became a celebration rather than a source of anxiety. Dr. Chen's support network had grown into a comprehensive mentorship program that helped me navigate interviews and selection processes with confidence. When acceptance letters began arriving in March, I had multiple options from prestigious institutions that specifically valued my perseverance and integrity. The moment that truly marked my victory came during State University's graduation ceremony in May. As I stood at the podium delivering the valedictorian address to an audience that included extended family members who had finally learned the truth about my academic journey, I felt a peace I had never experienced before. My speech focused on the difference between earned achievement and purchased success themes that resonated powerfully with graduates who had witnessed the contrast between Emma's fraudulent career and my legitimate accomplishments. The standing ovation lasted nearly 3 minutes, with many audience members visibly moved by the story of overcoming family betrayal through determination and integrity. The family relationships that survived this ordeal became stronger and more authentic than anything I had experienced before. My cousin, Mark Dr. Chen, Amanda, and several classmates who had supported me throughout the legal battle formed a chosen family based on mutual respect and shared values rather than biological obligation. My grandmother, devastated by learning how my parents had exploited her generosity, became one of my strongest supporters. She established a scholarship fund in my name to help other students who faced family obstacles to their education, ensuring that my experience would create positive opportunities for future generations. The contrast between Emma's trajectory and mine became even more pronounced in the months following graduation. While I began medical school with full financial support and a network of professional mentors, Emma struggled to find any college willing to accept a transfer student with her academic record. Her social media presence, once filled with privileged confidence, became increasingly bitter and defensive. My parents' relationship with extended family never recovered from the revelations about their deception. Holiday gatherings became awkward affairs where their attempts to maintain social facades were constantly undermined by relatives who now knew the truth about their treatment of both their daughters. The golden child dynamic they had spent years cultivating collapsed entirely when family members realized how extensively they had been manipulated. The professional consequences for my parents extended beyond financial penalties. My father's business relationships suffered when news of the fraud became public through legal filings and media coverage. Several clients questioned whether someone who would steal from his own daughter could be trusted with their financial affairs. Looking back now, I realize that the greatest victory wasn't the money recovered or the recognition received, but the discovery that integrity and perseverance could overcome even the most systematic family betrayal. The experience taught me that blood relationships mean nothing without mutual respect and honesty, while chosen families built on shared values can provide support that biological families often fail to offer. My medical school classmates often ask how I maintained focus during such an emotionally devastating family crisis. The answer is that fighting for truth became more energizing than accepting lies, and building authentic relationships proved more fulfilling than maintaining dysfunctional family dynamics. Dr. Chen recently told me that my case has become a reference point in medical education circles for supporting students who face family opposition to their career goals. The network we built continues to help other students navigate similar challenges, creating a legacy that extends far beyond my individual success. As I prepare to begin my clinical rotations next year, I carry lessons about justice, perseverance, and the power of choosing truth over family comfort. The experience that once threatened to destroy my dreams ultimately provided the foundation for achievements I never thought possible, and relationships more meaningful than anything I had lost. Have you ever had to choose between family loyalty and personal integrity when the stakes felt impossibly high? I'd love to hear your experiences in the comments below. Sometimes the hardest battles we fight are the ones that teach us who we really are and what we're capable of achieving. If this story of family betrayal and ultimate justice resonated with you, please hit that like button and share it with anyone who might need to hear that standing up for yourself is always worth the struggle. Don't forget to subscribe for more real-life stories about overcoming impossible odds and finding your chosen family along the way. Thank you for being part of this journey with me, and remember, sometimes the greatest revenge is simply living your truth and building the life you actually deserve, regardless of who believes you can't do it.